Good day, gentlemen, and welcome to the Time Recording with Tikit Carpe Diem conference call. My name is Nada, and I'll be your operator for today. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. Later, we'll conduct a question-and-answer session. If at any time you require operator assistance, please press star followed by 0, and we'll be happy to assist you. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded. I will now like to turn the conference over to your host for today, Peter Azar. Please proceed.
Welcome everyone for this session on Tikit Carpe Diem, time recording for the legal industry. I suspect we'll go for about 40 minutes, and at which time we'll have the question and answer session. So we should have it all wrapped up within the hour very easily. Quick note about Tikit. If you have not heard about Tikit, we've been in the business or serving the legal industry since 1994. Event or highlight was the acquisition by BT Group in 2013. Global supplier to the legal industry, about 1,500 clients worldwide, and a staff of about 200, of which a lot are in the technical and consultancy space. Like I mentioned, our client base is equally distributed in North America, UK, Europe, with scatterings in APAC as well, and Australia. So pretty global footprint. And what we deliver basically is our own IP software, mainly Carpe Diem, which we're talking about today. About 50 clients in total, of which about 150 are in North America. So deliver e-marketing solutions, as well as document management solutions via partnership with NetDocuments globally. Modernization strategy with Tikit Carpe Diem. It all started in 2010. We acquired Carpe Diem from Sage. At that time, it was pretty much on a legacy platform, namely the Borland database engine, which was contributing that legacy. We did continue working on that platform and offered up a release in 2010, post-acquisition. The main event really happened in 2012 when we were acquired by BT Group, and in 2013-14 we requested funding for a 100% rewrite of Carpe Diem. Its roots go back to 1994. Obviously, the technology was legacy. Could not extend it any further, so a lot of firms were up against a technology wall, and that posed risk. So we decided to rewrite it completely from the ground up. And really resulted in the release of next generation timekeeping in 2014-15. Really, we tried to do something unique at that point, address what we say best of both worlds. We wanted to protect our clients' revenue intake and also address the various user personas that are out there in the industry today, mainly the business clerical worker as well as the consumer professional, and how do we navigate across those two different personas. So what we did was, one, develop a thick desktop, really addressing users, our smart timer users. We have users that are anchor up to 100, 150 smart timers on their desktop at any given time and effectively manage them, believe it or not, as well as firms that are transposing entries. They have assistants doing a lot of edits, etc., in a very collaborative model. So that was important, mainly to protect that revenue intake level, and well to offer UX experience for some user personas. That was very well received. At the same time, we have a complementary web application that is the new persona, which is consumer professional. Thin client, responsive design, browser agnostic, and we've added a new feature functionality, namely something called time finding, which we'll address in the demonstration very shortly. Actually taking footprint of activities and offering up suggestions for conversion into time entries, passive timekeeping. It was the best of both worlds, two user interfaces, one platform, multiple user personas, with the ultimate goal of revenue maximization and a pleasant user experience for all personas. On the right-hand side, because of its architecture and design, offers anytime, anywhere access application, and we'll see that in the demonstration. So the next generation timekeeping, I've already alluded to. What does it address? The business of law has changed. Technology has changed over the last 10 years. A lot of opportunity on the technology side, but a lot of challenges on the business side in terms of addressing your plans outside council guidelines, the rigor and the scrutiny that comes with the billing nowadays and the billing relationship. So on the technology side, obviously the new persona, i.e. the consumer professional, all your users are consumers of technology. As you know, everybody's carrying phones today. How do we leverage that into business benefit? And that's very important in our design and architecture. The attention, in a work environment, everybody's mobile, everybody's delivering services anytime, anywhere. They have to have access to the technology to improve that service delivery. Also, like I mentioned, contemporaneous capture. We want to capture as we work, but sometimes we'll be accurate in reconstructing as well. There are situations where we have to go back and fill in the blanks, and I need technology to help me. So technology's changed. There's a lot of opportunity. And on the right-hand side, obviously the business of law, as I mentioned, the challenges. We all know about the new normal. Rates are being challenged all the time. Fee arrangements are now basically putting pressure on timekeeping to make sure it's accurate and compliant. The whole collaboration cycle with clients, your clients are demanding access anytime, anywhere. They want to know their budgeting. They want to know, they want to have confidence that a law firm has control of the time inventory management. And they will test law firms on that notion all the time. And we always say, timekeeping, I always say, it's key in law firm relationships. The better it is, the more accurate it is, the more transparent it is. That all bodes well for that relationship. Architecture, it's a pure architecture. Like I said, we built from the ground up. I already talked about on the top layer is the application layer or the UX layer, meaning we have the web app, we have a native mobile app, we have an admin app, and we have a Tikit desktop. So all of those address the multiple user personas. Law firms don't really say which one is better. The question is which one is better for the particular user is really the question. As well as an open API. The new architecture allowed us to expose the API. We use the API ourselves. We post it to our clients so they could build at a low level, high-level APIs themselves, but we will offer some web APIs and REST APIs that are addressing common integration features like import-export, information display, ethical walls, etc. The re-architecture not only addressed the front end, meaning the user experience, but also the back end in terms of integration capabilities. After all, we are a downstream system. We need process management systems, so the integration layer is quite important. So we're going to just go in and look at Carpe Diem. We're going to start with the web desktop, introduce you to Time Finder, how that plays into time and constructing, to the performance dashboard and how we measure success and how firms are using these metrics for success measurement. And then we'll look at mobile as well and how this application can translate or transitions into mobile from it, and also our native app. So we will I'm opening up here in Google, in Chrome. Again, this works in any browser, so really it extends on any device. First, you'll notice I'll take you, I mentioned responsive, and you could test the responsive of any app simply by developer tools, and you can see how this application, full form, responds down to, let's take a, we will look at it on iPhone 7. There on a Galaxy, it looks like this. Functional, it just resets, the menus are collapsed, but the experience is very, very similar apart from the real estate. And even down to the iPad as well. You can see it's fully functional on all of those platforms, and it's the notion of responsive design. Another thing before we go into any functionality is UI elements. You'll notice everything is of size. The signs, the buttons, explicit verbiage. There's no icons, simply because the interface has to address click as well as touch. A lot of attorneys are using Surface Pros or other tablets, so touch becomes a key method of interacting with the UI. So there should be any areas of doubt over the touch and or click. That's why everything's upsize. Sections. In the interface, we have a work list, which is basically a list of favorites that persists. We'll look at that in a second. Our time sheet, which is right now empty. And then we have our time finder that lists potential time by navigating through your electronic footprint of activities. And we'll look at that in a second as well. Up over the top, we have other tabs here. Obviously, we're in the time tab, but we have a module for expenses as well. We'll talk about that as well in terms of extra value, and the dashboard in terms of the metrics are available, and some reporting, which the application does use standard micro SSRS reporting. All reports, again, on the notion of being open to our clients, are delivered and are customizable by the end user. So let's add a time entry. The application is delivered with a admin tool. The whole form, positioning, validation, relationship with fields is all configurable via admin tool. So all the positioning that you're seeing here, labeling as well, and which is all configurable by law firm. Predictive lookups, type what you think, numbers, names, embedded text, whatever comes to mind, you can type. If I type BT here, it'll find a client BT. When I select that client, something happens to the form. Sorry, go ahead. Happen form, the data, there's a note, called a field note that comes up. And that field note can be anything, i.e. billing guidelines, can be instruction sets, it could be condensed, compressed. In case I could have a quick notion on billing guidelines, all the way to a link to the billing guidelines in the system or your intranet, wherever that may be. Moving on, if I switch that to, I'm just going to switch it to 1.1 here. Here I could use touch or that. Prompt for phase and task as needed. If there's no phase or task requirement, it will not ask for it. Again, it's all synchronized with your time and billing system. All those rules are completely ported into the application, so there's no re-entry or rekeying of any of those rules. So here I'm creating a perfect entry. It's even asking for location. Notice the increments. I could use the plus or minuses. I could hours here. Sorry for that. Just a few calls. And some time, and I'm going to put in some text. TCW. It's got all the lookups, smart text as well to create efficiencies. With entry, it's ready to go. We've just did the most complex entry possible. Likewise, I literally can never refuse his entry, so I could say offer. And save. So I just jot down a note or met with Fred or whatever. An incomplete entry. As you can see, we never refuse time. I could add some time here. It will not go to your accounting system. It will stay behind. There will be complete awareness of the entry, so it will not get lost, but it will not go to the accounting system. Important point: modern systems, especially when we go to mobile, we want to capture time anywhere without the administrative layer or the burden of being perfect. That's an important concept in modern timekeeping. It's a dynamic worksheet. So if I get interrupted with a phone call, which I just did, I can literally engage with entry anytime. So for example, if AC calls me up again, I simply can stop. There's a timer that is attached to every entry. I could engage with the narrative, more discussion, et cetera, et cetera. And so really, it's a dynamic timesheet that I can engage anytime. I don't have to go into the form. So that's very useful. Once an entry is in place, it can be accessed and addressed really through a dynamic time here. If, for example, I'm going to be working on this file a lot, I could simply add it to the work list, and it tags that entry so that it persists over time. It becomes part of my favorites, and favorites will now extend on the desktop, on the mobile, everywhere else. So I don't have to always key in 1-1 and everything else that's associated with. As you can see, it was added here as favorite. Working favorites is very easy. If you go to the next day, as you'll notice, the work list persists. If I go back on my later day, I can literally say add time or start a clock when I come in the morning. What it does, it drops the entry down to my timesheet, and I start working. So I interrupted the first call in the morning. I hit button. The whole 4-65 is occurring file I'm working on, and put an name in the phone, and it's done. If ever that file becomes dormant or it's closed, I simply can list and say move it from my work list, and now my work list goes down to 2. That easy. The interplay between work list and the timesheet. Work list is really template time entries, for lack of a better word. That's simple. Last here, time. If you go down below here, 4 activities. If, for the example, in that day, I feel there's a shortage, or I go back on a previous day and help in the blanks, I could simply click Time Finder, and it will let me know what I did that day. The emails that I sent, any agenda items in Outlook, any document work, i.e. by us mining the document management system, even phone calls. So there's an example of one of each here. Obviously, there'll be more. Typically, it might be 30 or 40 activities, depending on the filtering that you set up. And really, the idea here is a memory trigger. Oh, I realized I worked on 6-68. I sent an email. I completely forgot. It's not part of my list. Let's confirm and add time as a time entry. Now becomes, it dropped up here, and off we go. Or some might want to look at the list and just add time entries simply from the information that's listed. So a valuable tool. It's play application. It sits right below the timesheet. It's not far away, and it's just an aid in supplementing contemporaneous timekeeping with passive timekeeping. When the timesheet is complete, obviously I have a couple of ready items. I can literally, if I click on any of these, I have a panel that displays. Address it by simply submitting that entry. Off it goes to your account system. I could submit the entry. If I take two entries, I could merge entries together. So there's a whole management bar below that is triggered on selection of entries. Obviously, incomplete entries will not go anywhere. They need to be addressed for them to be complete or ready state. If I take this entry here, just as an example, and I submit it, it will inherit a new state called submitted. And notice it's grayed out. The entry's gone. It hasn't landed in the accounting system. There's ability still to recall it, but if not, it'll be locked down and for audit purposes secured. Okay, so we have the work list. It's basically your favorite affairs that you're working on. The timesheet is what you're building. Notice the associated smart timer connected to it at all times, and below it, the time finder, which supplements the timesheet in terms of memory triggers and constructing some of those days. All this that I'm showing here is responsive. It will extend to any platform, iPad, mobile, etc. We're talking about a single application throughout. A little bit of that performance dashboard. Our firms today want to monitor their success. Out of the box, Carpe delivers a whole series of analytics. Obviously, a lot of them are related to, or the majority are related to hours against budget, and split between billable and non-billable. So, if we receive any targets or budgets, we will definitely mount the analytics for the firm. But more importantly, we also have what we call performance metrics in terms of lag to capture, lag to release, how quickly time is getting into the system, how quickly it's being released to your accounting system. In fact, if we do an integration with your billing system, we could even see how long that entry takes to appear on a bill. This we will need some cooperation from the billing system to display it. Goes right down to the velocity metrics, go right down to individual timekeepers. So you see who the high performers are, or versus sort of in terms of keeping performance. All of this is measured in days or hours. How quickly time is being put in. If you put in time on a Monday, for Monday on a Friday, you have a lag of 4 days. If you put it on the same day, it's a lag of 0. We want the lowest lag connects to the highest performers. So out of the box, nothing to configure of the dashboard. mobility, again, it's really, we tend not to use the word mobility because it is the same application. As I showed you, it could respond right down to mobile, but I'll show it anyway. The key thing here is, again, emphasizing one application does it all. So over to mobile. Here, I'm in mobile. I like logging into Carpe Diem on my mobile device. Same URL on the desktop. There's a synchronization that's done in terms of creating some caching. I'll explain why. And as you see, I just brought up, and that smart timer that I started on the desktop is still running on the mobile. So, you know, away timers, leaving the office, didn't complete something, you know, you have a second chance because accessing the application from a distance is essentially the same application. So everything transits over that risk of design. Entry, if I want to add a new entry, notice how simple it is over here. Again, touch and click is supported. And you'll notice and save. And what I'm doing here, the application is running in offline mode or online mode. It doesn't matter if there is no connection. What you're seeing here, because there's a built-in queue, I run this in an airplane. As I get off the plane, it actually connects and syncs up the entries. Hence why you've seen the caching that was coming in, or the synchronization when I came into the application, and the notion of the queue, which is right here, 0 depending. So, in offline mode, as well as your desktop. So if you're on a Surface Pro, thing, you switch to the mobile version, it's got queue and be working in the offline mode just as easily. Auto sensing all the time in terms of connection. So very easy to navigate. And there's no loitering. There's absolutely no loitering of entries. You do not lose entries. Or you don't leave entries at the administration of the end user on a mobile device. The entry is if there's a connection, it will update when the opportunity arises behind the scenes. So landing spot into a zone at all times. And that's important for enterprise firms. Okay. And otherwise, the full application, if you want to switch to a full version, I was in an offline mode. And it's more responsive, but if a connection, no, Mind Finder, all the functionalities of the full application available on the platform, including the performance metrics, dashboard, and so forth. That we for is the same application, as you can see. What we've seen, we've transitioned from desktop to mobile, where we didn't touch the iPad, but trust us, it will respond appropriately on the iPad as well. We have anchoring mechanism so that you always anchor the application. So instead, I'm anchoring my mobile application to the desktop, as you can see here. So while here's my desktop anchor. So if I want to do timekeeping, simply click time and off it goes. Yeah. So same application. One is anchored, the other one's mobile. No curve. When you leave the office, you're engaging with the same user experience. However, end users really want a native application. Carpe Diem does deliver native for Android and iPhone as well. So if they're not convinced, or they just want to use the admin part in terms of submitting to your accounting system, or some of the checking features, or anything to administer time or manage time using the web app, they want to use the native app for capture. We all have the native app available. We will open up very quickly. I'll move them. On iPhone, same synchronization features, all the quick text, all the favorite matters, all the search is available, and the ability to work offline mode as well. Functional, and very performant. All the terms, all the configuration in terms of labeling and everything else matches exactly with the desktop. Here I'm doing some quick text. They're all synced up. So I'm really doing a entry here on a mobile, native mobile application. I'm making it available for, enhancing it for iOS 12, some of the new enhancement for iOS 12. So there's a major release coming out in this area as well, in this calendar year. We also have the ability to put the application in express mode. I always show this. Lawyers love it, where you can literally put the application in express mode, and it gives you a single field experience. This way for Siri, dictation, simply jot down entries and sending them. So when I leave the office, I put it in express mode, and my interaction with the application is this field. It's a one-field interaction. Here I'm talking to the application and bring notes. So in a matter of 1 or 2 minutes, I get in 3 or 4 entries while I'm in a time-constrained environment. Here we're typing obviously text or Siri are available. So it's very powerful, one of the most popular interfaces for attorneys. And when we did our health checks, this is where a bulk of the return on investment comes from, is from the what we call the Express interface. A quick peek at the native mobile. I showed you the desktop as well, and how the desktop transitions into mobile as well here. So a lot of options are available. It's part of the suite addressing all the various user personas and making sure that we don't make a statement in terms which is better. It's better for the end user. Okay. So we've looked. We've shown that it was responsive. We've shown that it's comprised of 3 areas: the work list, the timesheet, the time standard. We looked at the performance dashboard, and we've taken the desktop, responded it to mobile, which 100% functionality, including the times are still running. So that was evidence of the same app, and works in offline mode. And then we showed you the native app as well to complement the suite. Couple other areas that are important on compliance. This has been very front center in the last 3-6 months. A lot of firms are being challenged. They want to bring compliance right down to the beginning of the work-to-cash cycle, which is timekeeping. If we address it early, the compliance at the keeping level will benefit the downstream process, mainly billing and all the collections down the road. So getting right early is important. I showed you showed you awareness. Every single field that we can patch notes, awareness notes, and to help the users understand what's required from them in their certain fields. So the awareness part, but there's also the validation part. What's being here are snippets from our admin module. The validation rules extend from rules at the closing area, validation against dates, how early, how far back we could go, how far future we can go in terms of time capture. What is the maximum amount of hours per day? What is the increment that is required for the hours? Greater or less than on a given day. So a whole slew of validations in terms of getting it right at the timesheet level in terms of the hours. And also, what's important now is the narratives. What narratives are allowed, which ones are violations. We can put in words, phrases, punctuation, so that basically the entries become compliant at the point of submission as opposed to being rejected on a submission of an invoice. So we're bringing compliance closer to the source. So we've extended a lot of our standard validation rules to go all the way down to the narrative level. That's not enough. We can go even further. We could validate against anything, not necessarily what's standard in our system, but any other rule set that may have available either in your practice management system or a third-party application that houses those rules. And those rules can be, compliance rules, or they could be budgeting rules, whatever it may be. That means that the application can go out. We act a rule as a service call. We do that with the e-billing hub here. We connect it here. We have integration with the e-billing hub, but it could be an integration with, let's go monitor a HR system in terms of, things, or we could go monitor a practice management system in terms of where's the budget level, and then we could attach that validation against the save or close function in the system. So in this case, I'm attaching it to the save. So every time I click save, there's a validation, external validation that goes out. There's a response that comes back and sends it to the end user either to proceed or so that really provides unlimited flexibility in what kind of validations can be done at the point of entry of timekeeping. Some examples, which could be considered extreme, but are all feasible. We don't want more than 10% of time value registered against a keeper with a partner status. So we stipulated that, on this given matter, revenue, total cost should be 10% from anybody with a status of partner. And that be monitored. And we could say you're approaching the 10% mark and create hard halts or warning messages. Billing, an example of returning a warning, block billing violation, potential block billing violation message coming up. If character count is greater than 200, and we have semicolons that occurs more than twice, the word and occurs more than twice. That's all programmable in this call we're attaching to the mechanism. There are no limits in terms of what validated, and that basically provides 100% compliance opportunity for the firm. Now we're moving out a little bit in terms of extra value at the intersection. A lot of times we're keeping as a mandatory process. What else can we do? We have this unique experience that basically a responsive goes across all device platforms. Is there anything else we can do to deliver value at the moment of time capture or using the same experience? Well, it is a couple of things that basically are so we could leverage that same experience for forecasting and workload. The idea being, if we're entering time for the past, why not use the same user experience to enter time into the future, maybe not at the same granularity level, but still able to capture that data into the future and then use it as a workload or resource availability set. That has been added. And the idea of entering expenses, the fact I'm using the application and the experience for time, and I'm using it daily or hopefully, can I leverage that UI for expenses? And we've added both of those as well into the mix. So forecasting and workload is extremely simple because it's just layered on top. There is no other module. It's a button. So as I go into the future, I have a screenshot here of tomorrow. There's a forecast button that comes in, so you could add time, provided the validation rules allow you, but it opens up the forecasting where I could put in for time. That data is isolated and reported on through a forecasting dashboard. All we're doing is extending the UI to capture future hours instead of past hours. So those are the key things. You can enter it in on a daily basis. We can put it in on a weekly basis. So again, the granularity is not the 0.25s here. Probably it's 4 hours per day or 8 hours per day on a given matter because I'm really focused on this matter for the next 2 weeks. I simply put in 8, hit save, and now those hours are allocated as forecasted hours. And somebody who's pricing or looking at resourcing or doing bids can see availability of resources because people are putting in getting data through a channel that is quite familiar. Likewise, monitoring forecasting, who's participating. We have a whole participation area where tell me who's been participating in forecasting. I could send messages, haven't entered your forecasts, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole monitoring of participation. If you want to get the data, the biggest challenge in entering workload is data. Using timekeeping helps, but at the time you need some monitoring to see, where are we with our forecasts and are people contributing? And this is what that's the dashboard area that I showed you. It's a feature there. So the area you could do resource a builder where you can go say, well, let me go check in this office, these practice areas. I want this experience level. Who's available? List names with color coding. It's all configurable by the firm with full down capabilities to identify matters they're working on. So it's really the radar screen for resourcing. On the notion that data is in there and people are contributing, and then obviously the boards become valuable. Quite a lot of firms are using email. They're using notional, where just relative workloads, meaning people are just saying I'm busy or I'm busy or medium or light. This is really granular. You can see exactly how what the forecast looks like over time, right down to the individual matters. So you can do some resource shuffling as well, and all that helps with your pricing exercise. And knowing which are available at what price over a given time period. Again, this is quite obvious. We've just simply used the same user experience, including receipt attachments, so you can upload receipts and then complete them and submit them as part of an expense report. It's not. It's enough features to get the job done and leverage the experience for those who don't have a proprietary expense management tool. It's just, again, on the notion of extra value at the intersection of time, I like to call it. As far as takeaways, regarding the fact fact, it's a new technology platform, all developed in 2014-15. Subsequent enhancements since then, as per client feedback and industry movement, in both on technology and the business of law side. I'm ready to single responsive web app anytime, anywhere. So everything you've seen is available right down to any footprint, including the smartphones. Additional clients, just because we have this consumer-grade application doesn't mean that there's no need for a thick client for some of the administrative personnel, as well as those who have a line for native apps. That's still available and still being developed and evolving. More integration because of the exposed API and some of the higher level APIs that we've made available. So less risk in that data transfer zone. OCG awareness and compliance, we've shown you how standard built in right down to the narrative, but also further extends through third party. And then last but not least, what else can we derive value from? We've engaged users in timekeeping, and expenses are two opportunities that we've integrated into the solution. So right on time, it's 45 minutes. Opening up for questions now, either through audio or through the chat. So
if you have an audio question, please press star followed by 1 on your phone. If it has been answered or you would like to withdraw your question, press star followed by 2. You'll submit your questions using the Q&A box located on the right-hand side of the WebEx. Questions taken in the order received. Please star 1 to begin. Your first question comes from the line of Neil Oberman. Please proceed.
Good afternoon from Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Yes.
I have a question regarding language. As you know, Quebec is a by province, French and English. I did note that there could be adjustments in terms of time descriptions. If the environment can also be completely turned into a French environment, if that language is provided?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I switched back to the application, and obviously it's fully localized, the application. So time zones, it has to account for time zones because we have firms that have multiple offices. So, you know, different users are in different time zones, extra calendar and time. And also language, out of the box, we have Spanish there as well. But the box, fully translated, we have English and French. So you simply click on, you could create a default by the admin, or a user can choose their language of preference and hit save. And that should change it to French.
Great. Just one last question. With respect to integration into a VoIP system, time entries, or phone calls.
Yeah.
No standard Cisco VoIP system. It'll integrate.
Yeah, the majority of our integration, as long as there's evidence of any CDR data, it's not so much the system, it's accessing the data of the phone call, because obviously we're connecting phone numbers to clients and matters, and we're doing some intelligence there and populating our activity tables. So the majority, we've done Cisco already. Obviously, there's different variants of the Cisco platform. It's more about if electronic footprint of the call data and it's accessible. We have a generic phone connector. We connect to a data source and populate our activity tables.
Will your presentation available by email, by PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like a copy of it if possible. you very much.
I'm showing we have no further audio questions. Again, if you would like to ask an audio question, press star 1 on your phone. I do have questions on the web portion as well. Your first integrations are available with Carpe Diem.
Yeah, we obviously we already talked about the phone integrations, but in terms of the practice management systems, you know, we've integrated pretty much standard with Elite, Adherent, laws, PC laws. I think we've integrated right down to the time slips level. A lot of the industry standard, what we call them in billing systems, we have full integration with. In far as document management systems, Net Documents and iManage out of the box in terms of populating the activity as open text. And much the systems, it's the evidence of or access to the data sets. One of the ones that I've just specified. Those are the systems that we integrate with in the majority of times. But we've integrated with what we call custom systems as well. SAP we've done. Our business is downstream, and we got to connect to the system. So our value does not exist if we cannot integrate. That simple. Hence why, you know, this rewrite opened up more opportunities for what we call higher level integration.
Question: does Timefinder work with all applications on the user's workstation?
What we have, that's a really good question. We deliver Timefinder with what we call enterprise connectors, which are Exchange, document management, VoIP, means that the integrations are done server side, meaning on the desktop. A lot of law firms like that in the sense that, you know, we're not contaminating the desktop, not that notion of big brother, and there's enough value in emails, agenda items, documents, and phone calls to help the user remember what they did on a given day. However, if there's huge value on some custom application, or you want to monitor a website, we do have what we call a desktop collector, which is a client-side piece that monitors Windows states. You identify the application, the operation in terms of filtering, and it's going to start tracking activities, sending them up to the what we call enterprise activity tables. So, you know, in the end is, yes, we can monitor any open window on any desktop through our desktop collector.
Your question: how many of your firms are using mobile? Been successful?
That's very relevant. We've had mobility for, you know, prior to the full right and responsive platform. Probably 60 to 65% are using mobility now. So the minority are not. So we've moved past that. As far as success, success is relative to what is the measure of success. Revenue intake in terms of newfound time, what is mobile contributing in terms of newfound time. The majority are successful. The firms are understanding that mobile is what we call rotational participation, meaning, you know, heavy participation in one month can be followed by very light participation in the next month because there was no need, because they're not as mobile as in the previous month. So that rotational participation across the firm is usually now around the 50% mark. In any given month, half the user base are using it. but the revenue that's coming from that is astonishing sometimes, and when we get down in terms of drums that are elected from the mobile platform. We do even have attorneys that are using the mobile platform at their desk simply because they like the express feature. They like just jotting things down quickly and using that as their primary intake. So that's why we don't like using the word mobile anymore. It's just a different UX and used anywhere, even in the office.
Your next web question: is it possible to integrate Carpe Diem Mobile for mobile devices with an existing accounting time management software?
Well, absolutely. I mean, an existing time management software. Absolutely. The question becomes, is that existing time management software have an open door for our mobility product to feed it data? Is it have a import feature or a service or a web service accepts foreign trees? So that we can be the source for that. Remember, mobility, is it the native mobility or is it the web mobility or both? But the key here is that common build system openness to receiving data. We typically, as a downstream system, don't directly. We go through proper channels, meaning APIs, data transfer modules, import modules, or something of that sort. So we're updating with permission as opposed to against the database.
And at the time, we have no further audio or web questions.
Fun for joining today, and we will be sending out the PowerPoint presentation. All of you who attended, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's conference. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect. Have a great day.